the greatest weakness is giving up, but one of our biggest strengths can be just to try one more time.
Welcome to Working Women Mentor, a podcast that empowers everyday women like you, like me, to share and learn from life's mentor moments. I am your host, Rani Alfers, and in each episode, you will meet inspiring women that understand the power of recognizing mentor moments and how those moments can change it all. These fabulous women are here and ready to share it all with you. So let's dive in. Hey everyone, today's episode is all about digital nomads. If you're using a laptop, if you're working remotely, if you've ever thought about just picking up and moving somewhere else, that's where things are going right now, aren't they? Kline is a entrepreneur. She is a dreamer of travel and she connects with the people wherever she goes. And it hasn't always been easy. She's going to share some fantastic tips with us today on how to work somewhere else, what life is like, and what mentorship has brought to her personally and professionally. You don't want to miss this episode, and let's dive in and meet Megan right now. Megan Kline, thank you so much for joining us on Working Women Mentor today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. We haven't talked since right in the heat of the pandemic. And so I'm super excited just to catch up with you today. But also, the girl that's never home, right? That's your, I'm catching you at a time when you're at home. You're actually in Texas right now.
Yes, quite literally back at home, which has been great and very enlightening.
Well, I think everyone's sort of moved around and shifted around over the last couple of years. Megan, tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, and so everyone can meet you.
Yes, so I am a WordPress and Show It web designer. I specialize in taking e-commerce brands or small businesses and basically building them an online experience that converts. My motto is taking someone's in-store interactions and building them into a full-blown online experience. So, what you would have in store and your customers would hold so near and dear to their heart interacting with you and your brand, we can translate that online and make it sort of a seamless experience where you can have those relationships from across the screen.
Yeah, and the conversion piece is so important, isn't it? It's nice to have a free site, but we also want people to buy things and to convert and connect with us. So you're an entrepreneur at heart. And one of the most exciting things that I always think, looking at your Instagram, and we'll share that, but it's a traveler's dream because you generally are never home, right? You've created this world for yourself where you can pick up and go and work anywhere. What's that been like for you over the time period you've been traveling and working abroad?
It has been one of the most rewarding experiences on so many different levels. I would say, both personally and professionally, there's a lot of growth to be had when you are pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, totally immersing yourself into a place you don't necessarily know anyone, and you're trying to sort of embrace a culture that you're not familiar with. And you're just trying to connect with other individuals who sort of share some sort of underlying commonality. So for example, in the digital nomad space, if I can use that term here.
I like a lot of term. Let's go with it. Yeah.
A lot of those individuals are self-made entrepreneurs, and they sort of choose this life to work for themselves and gain some sort of freedom, whether that's location-based or financially, what have you. And then they are also trying to experience the world. And I would say connecting with those individuals has been very, very rewarding because you essentially are connecting with people you would have otherwise never had met and learning so much about them. And these individuals, aren't just from the US. They're from all walks of life, all stages of life, everywhere. And so that has been one of the best experiences I have done. I tried to not only immerse myself in the cultures, but also connect and build a community while I am there to help myself, feel comfortable, dive into things, and continue building my business while I'm abroad.
How are you connecting in that digital nomad community? Do you show up to a coffee shop and just, hey, I'm Megan, where is everyone? How do you build those relationships from not knowing anyone when you arrive to, I'm sure, having connections all over the world at this point.
Well, that is actually one of a really great way to start. I would say everyone sort of congregates at coffee shops or co-working spaces, which I now see is bubbling up everywhere now that everyone is mostly remote. But I would say trying to find those communities through either a Facebook group. That seems to be pretty easy to search for terms, or in an expat group, I would say. So expatriates, where you are all sort of, you're not really from there, you're not native or local, but you're looking for people to connect with. So I usually start there because there is more of a conversation happening online through Facebook. You can search through Instagram, or when you join co-working spaces, sometimes they will do events, which is very helpful. I'm not entirely sure what's going on now given the environment, but those tend to be places I start to look at first. And then from there, it sort of snowballs into, once you meet someone, then they may invite you to a networking event or something along those lines. And what's actually been really interesting, which I've tried out lately, is getting on Bumble BFF or Bumble Business. And the traditional dating app, you can use it for either finding, a friend to go and hang out with and experience a new place, or connecting with people on a business level. So using it as sort of a networking app.
It's so interesting you say that. I have a friend doing that exact same thing right now who's
really
living abroad. Yeah, she's on, and she said I'm on Bumble, and I thought, are you serious? Like, it just threw me for a loop because I know
it does.
She's like, Bumble BFF. I was like, okay. And so she's met some really interesting people, and I think after this, everyone being on lockdown, two things. I mean, one, we're all wanting to get out, right, and meet people, especially when you're abroad and in other countries. I think they've been quite restricted in many ways. But in addition, I also find, and you may think the same, is that travelers are so open to connecting. I mean, it's so much more open than sometimes even in our own community.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the best and easiest parts when trying to find community and connection abroad, is people are so willing to meet others because, for the most part, at least in the communities I've been a part of and sort of the digital nomad space, they are either traveling alone or on a solo trip or something. And so everyone they're craving that community. So they're very much open to trying things together as a group or meeting new people. And it just is like, it's a really wonderful experience and a really great feeling to just feel like you're automatically accepted, or you have some sort of something in common with these people already right off the bat.
And I know that with being a digital nomad, you're obviously still working, right? Clearly.
Yeah.
And you're finding these spaces. You do have to earn an income. You are, doing wonderful things during the day or when you want to do them at your own flexibility. How are you finding that you're connecting with people more on a professional level, where maybe even you can collaborate with or, have mentorship with or from or around you? Or is it more on a personal level?
I would say just based on how I find these communities, it starts professionally. So a lot of the individuals I'll meet and connect with, and maybe we'll create like a women entrepreneurial group. This is actually what I did when I was in Mexico earlier this year for a couple of months. We met at yoga, and then it turned into a small group of female entrepreneurs, and we would go and meet every week and discuss, maybe a business problem someone's having, and each one of us can kind of share our insight based on the industries we're in or our experience or that kind of thing. And then that eventually over weeks snowballed into we would sort of just end up venting with each other or maybe going out to dinner. So it was a professional relationship that turned into something like, a relationship you'd have with your coworkers going out to happy hour, which you don't have when you are an entrepreneur working for yourself, or traveling alone. You don't really have that sort of coworker type of relationship anymore. And so that's sort of what these turned into for me personally.
Well, how fun is that? Yoga and, talking with other women. And that's really, that's a mastermind. That is
exactly
your tight circle of friends. That's everything. And how interesting to have them from such different backgrounds and but all in a similar headspace of maybe solo traveling, expats living, really doing something unconventional in some ways, and comfortable in some ways, but enjoying it.
Yes, it really is so rewarding and just so much fun. And you end up having these, lifelong connections with people you would have otherwise had never have met. And the opportunities you can't even fathom. I have already had the opportunity to give like a workshop educational speaker to like a small business group in Illinois, which I really don't know anybody there except this woman that I met in Mexico, and she happened to run this nonprofit there, and I ended up speaking about WordPress websites to them. So it's just things that you can't really even imagine will happen. Like these opportunities just unfold, and it's incredible.
The unknown is the exciting part of travel.
It is.
And meeting new people, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you.
Can be scary, but it's good.
Yeah, it can. But that is also the fun part of it too, isn't it? I mean, just connecting and meeting new people. So in terms of obviously mentorship, and that's why we're here today and diving into that topic, I mean, how do you combine the two? I'm sure you've had some mentor moments from these women you've met or people you've met along the way, but how has that topic evolved for you over your career?
So I feel like in this space, right, of going internationally and meeting people, a lot of the times I feel like the smallest person in the room, especially like in the mastermind, for example. But I absolutely love it because I end up just absorbing every little piece of information because some of these women are just successful beyond what I could even imagine for myself. And they plant this idea into my head and say, oh, no, you should look at it from this perspective, or maybe do something a little bit differently. And it just is so rewarding. And I would say it took me quite a while to understand, like within my business space, just to start things and to learn the best way to pivot and create a product or service is to just listen to your audience, put something out there, get feedback, refine. And that's something that I had the hardest time understanding. And it wasn't until I met these group of women that they sort of shed light onto this. And a lot of them actually were business coaches or quite literally mentors themselves. And so it has been a really enriching experience there too.
What is a mentor moment that you'd want to share with everyone, Megan?
So I would say probably sort of tapping into what I had just explained is like just starting. In my actual corporate job prior to this, I was very much involved in strategy. And you can plan all you want, and it was very hard for me to get tactical. And so I would say it wasn't until these women came around and had said, okay, have you sold anything? Like, how do you know if your product is good? And I'm like, oh, well, I have this idea, I planned it out. And they're like, oh, no, you just need to put it out there, put a beta product, test it out, or talk to your most engaged followers on Instagram or what have you, and then learn from them and then tweak it to be like the perfect product for them. And I would say also on that note, you can't really be afraid of failure. So I would say both personally and professionally, we hear this all the time, but that sort of ties into that from the perspective of you have to fail to learn from what, to learn from the world and your target market and things like that. And I believe there's a quote that I really love, and it goes something like, the greatest weakness is giving up, but one of our biggest strengths can be just to try one more time. And you can just learn so much from that. So I definitely attribute that to the women that I met abroad. And they were mentors quite literally themselves to me. Still are people I look up to.
I love that. Are you still in touch with them while you're back in the U.S.? I imagine you built a pretty strong bond.
Yes, definitely. And it's wild with these relationships you build in these super dense niche communities abroad, because I feel like we only knew each other for a couple of months, but we're still in touch. And I'm doing a product launch. I'm going through everything I just explained now. I'm trying to pivot and test. And one of them from that I met in Mexico, she's now somewhere in Europe, gallivanting around, living a wonderful life there. And she congratulated me. I'm so proud of you, because we were talking about this earlier this year in Mexico. And so she gets to see that what we had discussed, I'm actually implementing.
So yeah, when someone sees their thoughts and their words that they've shared with you come to fruition, that is so rewarding, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm sure it is.
Well, in the digital nomad space, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to us that have wondered, what is it like to #work from anywhere? And, what advice would you give someone who is free and able really to move around, maybe not tied down with children or, deciding to leave a position? What does that look like? And what advice could you give them, Megan?
So I would say, you definitely want to have some sort of structure. Me personally, when I started working for myself, I was a little bit lost at first because I went from a traditional 9 to 5 where everything was sort of structured out. I had people telling me what to do. I was being held accountable to just being let loose. And although that's what I wanted, it was a little bit, I was a little bit thrown off. So I would say for sure, if you're jumping into this space, particularly working for yourself first and foremost, have some sort of structure, some sort of schedule, if that works for you, just to make sure you have some sort of boundaries, a framework,
yeah,
perfect
some
word.
Structure.
Yeah, some structure. And then if you are jumping into working abroad, me personally, I look for destinations that do have a expat or digital nomad community, where there are other individuals working remotely there, because you will automatically know the Wi-Fi is probably very stable. There's probably an affordable cost of living, and there's going to be people you can connect with, because I do feel community is important in that aspect.
Are there some countries that you could recommend on that note?
Yes. So the U.S., since we're close to Mexico, there is a big digital nomad community in Playa del Carmen and Tulum. That's where I was earlier this year for about 3 months or so. And then I do know in Europe, Lisbon, Portugal is a very hot spot at the moment. And again, these places are because they do have great Wi-Fi, amazing cafes to work from, or co-working spaces that are affordable and have a good conductive working environment, and those communities. So they will have, events you can just show up at and meet people. There are a couple of other places, but I don't know if those countries are open at the moment. So it's tricky now.
It is tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is tricky. Well, and those are two really great tips. And I think one of the initiators to making that move and deciding to work abroad or, digitally roam around to where you may feel like is risk, right? It's taking a risk, taking that leap. And how do you know when it's worth taking the risk? I mean, what advice would you give on that topic? Because you've done it.
Yeah.
I would also dare to say that you're doing it every time you actually take off to a new location, right? I mean, it's probably in some cases have been fresh to you. So how do you weigh that risk of going and what does that look like? Right.
So I absolutely love this question. I feel like it needs to be talked about more or asked more, just because risk doesn't always have to be scary. I would say I'm not necessarily a risk taker. I am within my own limits. So, I will plan and do a ton of research before jumping off and, to another country or city. Like I had said earlier, I need to know there's a community. I need to know there are people I can connect with, because it can be very isolating in this type of lifestyle, especially when working alone as well. So I would say if you are trying to embrace this kind of risk-taking, I would just say know your limits and, just do your research, but don't be afraid. Like, don't, I guess that's within its own, comparatively, you don't need to worry about that too much. But I would say know your limits within that and just do your research, create a plan, just know what you're capable of and take the risk. It will be rewarding.
And it sounds glamorous. It sounds, again, when everyone sees your Instagram feed, they are going to be, it just seems so wonderful. As you said about the lady who mentored you, she's gallivanting around Europe and enjoying life. Right? But it's not always a glamorous experience, is it?
No.
Have you had some moments where you were like, get me the hell out of here, or what am I doing?
Actually, it's funny you say that. There are definitely moments where I get a little bit homesick, it's like the cultural differences, or even food, something as simple as food. You crave some of your favorite meals from home. So there's a bit of things like that. And that's why I feel like leaning into that community is so important. But I would say there was at one point, actually, I was doing this right when COVID had happened. And I was in actually South Africa in Cape Town. And that was one of those situations where I was like, okay, I need to go home. Like, this is obviously, the pandemic is something that hit everyone very hard in different ways. But it was one of those situations where I was like, I need to go home and just be at home in something that's familiar and feels safe and comforting. So that was definitely one of those situations.
And that's okay too. I mean, that's not a failure. That's not you being scared to be there or not wanting to take the risk of staying. I mean, that was you knowing yourself. And I think to your comment of when you think of risk and you think of leaving something that you know well and going to something that is new and unknown, you have set up your safety net, it sounds like, is your strategy and planning.
Yes.
That is the safety net that you always have. You know where you're going. People will be there. I am not going to an island.
Yep.
And there is a great Wi-Fi signal if I need to phone home.
Yeah. And the community too. Yeah, exactly. Like it's just it's helpful. I'm not going to throw myself into a place that doesn't, check off everything on my list that I have. But there is a resource out there called nomadlist.com, I believe, and that actually grades specific cities around the world based on cost of living, safety, other things like environmental factor, women's safety, a lot of things like that. And that's actually been really helpful too.
Have you always been a traveler?
Recently, yes, I have. I would say college, I studied abroad. When I was growing up in high school, my parents hosted exchange students, and that's what sort of sparked the interest in cultures and experiencing different perspectives and things like that. So my corporate job, every time I would take a vacation, it would be somewhere abroad, somewhere far away and beautiful and different. And I feel like now I'm just getting to a point where I'm like, okay, what can I experience that's a little bit more exotic or a little bit more
push
unique.
The envelope a little bit further.
I'm like, I don't know if this is good for me, but it's really cool. I just love it so much. You learn so much from other people and cultures.
Did you feel like growing up there was someone that really inspired you to be who you are today?
I would say growing up, I always found my mother to be very inspiring. She gave me gold nuggets of wisdom. Like if something doesn't work out, there's always something better for you in store. That's why. And just learning from failure, not dwelling too much on that. But I would say they are very, very supportive, my family, of learning from other people, other cultures, investing in something that's going to make you a better person, either professionally or personally. And so, I think mentorship, the idea of it, coaching, anything that's going to help you and where you are in your stage of life, I think it's one of the most amazing things you can invest in yourself with.
And you say that, in addition, you are also helping small business owners with their own businesses, right?
Yes.
Because you're giving back in that way that you want to help them create what they want to, convert, as we said in the beginning, is important, but also I imagine their essence coming out through through the visual piece that you'll put together. Yes.
It is very easy to get overwhelmed by technology and how rapidly it changes and grows. And, especially with the pandemic, I felt like if you weren't online, even something as simple as ordering food, your restaurant business may have suffered. And so it's just very important to have that digital space. And I feel like, if you're a business owner and you feel a little bit overwhelmed by the rapid change and pace of technology, I want to be able to be there to help you either do it yourself through education, resources, or build something for you that's going to totally capture your brand and portray that through a screen. Because it can be, despite video calls and Zoom and all of these things we have to keep that connection, it's still a little bit hard to get your voice across the screen if you're a business, right? You see so many of them having, there's specific strategies around brand colors and your tone of voice and the words you use to convey a message and images. It's all pieced together, and there's a strategy for that. And so I'm hoping my goal is to help small businesses craft that and do that a little bit better so they can make an impact across a screen.
Do you think your background with being so culturally open and diverse in travel and meeting new people and as lovely as you are, how does that help you when you're working with a client and see from different perspectives?
That's exactly what it is. I feel like it's all about perspective. You have to put yourself in their shoes, so to speak, and really have that empathy and understand where they're coming from, understand their target market, and just see the bigger picture, have a more open mind or a wider lens on things. And I feel like traveling to all these places and just observing how different cultures do business even, or just learning different things and having the ability or training yourself to see things from different perspectives has really impacted and influenced the way I do business and work with clients.
And those skills are transferable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
totally.
Those are beautiful skills for life, right?
Yeah.
To be able to look at people's perspectives, be very open.
Yeah.
That's why you're able to connect so well, I imagine, with all these women while you're traveling, Megan.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I have to ask you, where is your next trip planned? I mean, you literally say the girl that's never home, but where are you going next?
And I'm home now.
I know.
For the holidays.
It's okay.
I have had Europe on my eye for such a long time, but being able to have this freedom to move around, I have been actually quite literally chasing summer. So I will not be going to Europe until probably it gets a little warmer. So I'm thinking, given the environment, I might go back to Mexico, maybe Mexico City. There seems to be a good community there, a good food scene, and a lot of other entrepreneurs and expats to connect with. So maybe there. I'm not entirely sure. We'll just see where life takes me at the beginning of next year.
Where can everyone find you now, Megan? Even while you're on the go in Mexico, Corpus Christi, Texas,
Yep.
Exploring your own city, which I love that. Where can everyone find you if they want to connect?
So wherever I am always available through email at hello@mklinedesigns.com or Instagram, mklinedesigns. I also have a Facebook page, but I would say Instagram, email are my most reachable channels, and I will respond. So please say hello.
Thank you so much for joining. I love your tips to our digital nomads out there that are listening, and also to folks that are thinking of what is life like when you're abroad and how those connections and being so open with other women and those mentor moments, if you will. It's not a formal mentoring program, and it doesn't have to be. And that's the beautiful part about sharing and connecting with other women, is that it can just simply be what you know and how you can help others. So you've shared so much today. So thank you for joining.
Of course, it's my pleasure. I hope I'm providing some sort of helpful tips and tricks to those listening. But yes, I encourage you to reach out. I always love a good travel story, so please reach out.
You'll be sitting in a cafe somewhere around the world one day, and they're like, I heard your tip, and here I am, right?
Maybe we'll meet up in that cafe. Yeah.
I love it. All right, thank you again, Megan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I hope you'll walk away feeling inspired and are thinking of how a mentor moment can help you or someone you know. In case you haven't hit the follow button to subscribe to this show, please do so. And if you love the episode, I'd really appreciate a review. You see, this review helps Apple or Spotify or whatever platform you're listening to us on know that other women just like you want to learn about the show. And it'll help us spread the word. Let's connect on Instagram at Working Women Mentor or at Rani Alfers. You can find all episodes online at ranialfers.com/podcast and the ability to send an audiogram of your favorite mentor moments. And we respond to everyone. I truly can't wait to hear from you. Check back weekly for new episodes, and cheers until the next episode.